Imagine like this. Imagine there's a dial, like a master volume knob on a sound controller. This is the consciousness dial. This dial regulates how conscious you are. Right now, for you, for an ordinary person, that dial is set to like a 3, let's say. If you're sleepy, that dial is like at a 1. If you're dreaming in deep sleep, that dial is maybe at a 0.2. And if you're totally unconscious, that dial, let's say, is 0. So the difficulty of explaining this to an ordinary person who's never experienced it is that for most people, their experience of what this dial can do only ranges from 0 to 3. It's never gone any higher than 3. Maybe it's gone to a 4. Like, if you've meditated for a bit, you can sit there, you can kind of focus, and you can become a little more conscious, and maybe it cranks from a 3 to a 4. If you're very, very clear-minded and sober. So really, in a sense, this dial controls your sobriety. Ordinarily, we think that like this normal state that we're in, this is sobriety, right? Well, that's a sobriety level 3. But you can crank this master knob of consciousness, and it starts to increase your sobriety. To a 4, to a 5, to a 6. It goes up to 11. And then it goes up to 100. And then it keeps spinning to 1,000. And then it keeps spinning to 100,000. And you realize that this knob spins forever. There's no limit to how sober and conscious you can become. It just so happens you live most of your life at a 3. And so have all your friends and all the people you know. And so there's a point at which the knob gets cranked, let's say to 1,000 or beyond. There's almost a very distinct threshold that is crossed where you look at the room. Nothing has changed. The colors are all the same. The objects are all the same. You look at your hands, your body. You look around the room and you realize, oh my God, I'm awake. This is what it means to be awake. It's just that that knob has gotten cranked up so much. You become so awake, you become so woke that it's terrifying. It's frightening how awake you are. You become so awake that you're beyond human levels of awakeness. You're so conscious, you're impossibly conscious. Your mind cannot fathom how conscious you've become. You've become so conscious, it's surreal. It is beyond what you would think is physically possible or scientifically possible. And your initial reaction is going to be something like, what the fuck is this? This is impossible. What is happening to me? It feels like some alien force has taken over your mind and your body. It feels unreal, but at the same time, it's the most real thing there is, because this knob, this is the knob. You might also call it not just consciousness, but reality itself. The more this knob is cranked up, the more real things get. The more you see things for what they are. So like right now, when you're at a 3 and you're sitting here and you're looking at a coffee table, to you it looks like a coffee table, and that's just what it is. When the knob gets cranked up to 1,000 or to 100,000, that coffee table, even though its colors and its shape doesn't change at all, what you understand it to be completely changes. You no longer see it as just a coffee table, as a physical object in a physical room, part of a physical universe made out of atoms and whatever else you believe about it. That object almost becomes like an alien object. And it's as though you're looking at that object for the first time. And when you look at that object, you truly see it for what it really is for the first time. And it feels like, the reason it's called awakening is it feels like you've awoken from the dream called life. You become so conscious, it's as though you're able to pierce through the fabric of physical material reality just with your mind. And you're able to comprehend its structure in its totality, what it is. Now, this is not a mental activity you're doing in the sense that you're sitting there thinking a bunch of thoughts the way that a scientist might if a scientist was thinking about some complex problem. It's not a function of complexity. It's a function of, well, consciousness. You become directly conscious of what things are, unmediated by any kind of thinking process. You just intuitively grasp objects in a highly multidimensional way. And you instantly understand what they are, what they really absolutely are. This is more than just experience. This is a heightening, a sharpening of what experience is, because your experience usually is at a level 3 consciousness. And here it goes up to 1,000 or 100,000. So this awakening is a pure lucidity. That's a good word for it, lucidity. We're just cranking up how lucid you are. It's an impossible level of consciousness. It's a level of consciousness that can't be imagined when you're at a level 3. Because that level 3 is what limits your imagination. I could also describe it that it feels as though the air got sucked out of the room. Everything becomes just crystal clear and perfectly lucid. It's like you're sitting in a vacuum, looking at the room. The room becomes crystalline, luminous, hollow, empty, a pure luminous void. Now, the word void here is a little bit misleading because when I say the word void, you might tend to think like the room disappears, the colors disappear, but they don't. All the colors are there. They're sharper than ever. They're brighter than ever. You recognize the self-luminous nature of consciousness and all objects. What you consider matter gets recontextualized as your own consciousness, and its luminosity becomes just blatantly apparent, undeniable, this absolute luminosity. You realize that consciousness is self-knowing and self-illuminating.